I'd like to present you with your very own Contemplative Sun by Akron's artist, Don Drum.
Very quickly, I'd just like to thank the board as well as our Akron community. It's been a great year, and I know we're going to even have a greater year with Mike as our president. So thanks again, and I'm glad that I get my own. I think I presented 14 of these last year, so thank you very
much. In consideration of our speaker, the radio audience, and others seated nearby, please take a moment to check your cell phones to make certain that they are set on silent or vibrating.
Can we get some more bread, please?
Good afternoon, and welcome to the Akron Roundtable. I am Michael Swartz, President of the Akron Roundtable Board of Directors. The Roundtable is brought to you over radio station WKSU 89.7 FM from the Quaker Station at the Quaker Inn on the campus of the University of Akron. The radio broadcast is underwritten by Cascade Audi. Today's program is generously sponsored by the Gertrude Orr Donor Advised Fund of the Akron Community Foundation First Merit Bank trustee. Additionally, we'd like to recognize the Akron Beacon Journal and Ohio.com for being a legacy sponsor for the Akron Roundtable. Please mark your calendar now for our Roundtable Extra, scheduled on Tuesday, January 27th, 2015, when the Akron Roundtable will welcome Stephen Johnson, who will present on the topic, How We Got to Now, Lessons from History's Unsung Innovators. To make a reservation for any of the Akron Roundtable luncheons or to purchase a subscription to our luncheon series, please visit our website at akronroundtable.org. We also invite you to join our group on Facebook. Today, the Akron Roundtable is pleased to have with us Mark Cohen, publisher of the Akron Beacon Journal, who will present on the topic, The Media Disruption and What It Means for the Beacon. I will now ask Jim Trapp, president of Akron Fresh Market, to introduce our speaker.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to be chosen to introduce this afternoon's Akron Roundtable speaker, Mr. Mark Cohen, publisher of the Beacon Journal. I must say, though, I'm surprised that Mr. Cohen asked me to introduce him today. As he so appropriately noted, the last speaker I introduced to this group was the owner of the Cleveland Browns, and his team went on to lose 5 of the last 6 remaining games. After my introduction, Mark, are you sure you want me to do this? In all seriousness, Akron is fortunate to have Mr. Cohen as the publisher of our community newspaper, the Akron Beacon Journal. Since coming to town, Mark has immersed himself into rebuilding the newspaper, Ohio.com, and introduced a replica version of the newspaper right to my iPad every morning, which I'm very grateful for. Mark understands the delivery method may change, but the importance of everyday news of our community is vital. Getting to know Mark and his wife, Michelle, you can see why this transformation took place so quickly. Mark's a leader. He's a good listener and has tremendous attention to detail for his product. And he understands the importance of the role that his publication plays in our community. Akron and the communities that surround it need a voice. We need points and counterpoints to be heard, and Mark understands how important fair is. We may not all agree on the content of the paper, but what I do believe is we have a tremendous person leading this valuable community asset. So without further ado, it is my honor to introduce this afternoon's Akron Roundtable speaker, Mr. Mark Cohen.
Very kind, thank you. Speaking of Jimmy Hansen, I was here when he was here, but I guess the end of the year. And when I was walking in, I saw him coming out of his limousine. And I assumed that the Akron Roundtable provided that. So I was over at East Exchange, here waiting for a bus for my limo. And it never showed up. So I had to get my Nissan and drive. I was kind of disappointed, but it's okay. I should have known, huh? I figured that Jimmy came from Cleveland and I was just down the road. It was a lot cheaper for me to get me. Real quick on Mr. Trout and Deb, it's kind of funny how we met. I wasn't certainly our biggest advertiser, so we took them to an Indians game and we met at Schuler's right outside of Cleveland. And so we were sitting, my wife and I, and Jim and Deb walk up. We ordered a red wine, and of course we toasted, and it just went everywhere. I mean, the wine was spilled, it was on our pants, it was like, oh my gosh. So thanks for staying with us even from that start. I'm excited to be here, and I appreciate that you invited me to kick off 2015. Before I start, the timing is really good for us and for you, because we're ready to launch something, and we've got a 2-minute, 30-second promotional video to show you. And I think to set that up, many say that we're a little stodgy, that we're old school, that we lack innovation. Well, we're ready to roll something out, and we want you to take a look. So, Sean, hit it.
Once in a while, a product comes along that changes the way we live. A device so simple and intuitive, it almost feels familiar. Introducing the 2015 Beacon Book. It's not a digital replica or an e-paper, it's a Beacon Book. The first thing to note is no cables, not even a power cord. The 2015 Akron Beacon Journal comes fully charged. The battery life? Well, it's eternal. The interface is 12.25 inches wide by 11.5 inches tall, but can be expanded to 24.5 inches wide by 22.5 inches tall. The navigation is based on tactile touch technology that you can actually feel. The content comes pre-installed with award-winning high-definition enriched content from the area's best writers. To start browsing, simply touch and grab. Right to left to move forward, left to right to move backward. Notice something else? That's right. No lag. Each crystal clear page loads instantaneously, no matter how fast you scroll. Yes, amazing. What about multiple users? If you find a particularly inspiring article you wish to share that is informing, engaging, or essential, you literally share it. Another special feature is password protection, which is voice activated. Excuse me, that's fine. At the Akron Journal, we feel technology this life-enhancing should be made available to everyone. Each day, a new version can be downloaded to your doorstep, or you can upload yourself to any local retail store and find one there. Experience the power of a Beacon Book.
See this guy here, this guy producer of UPS did that at a retreat we had. See, we can be fun. Everything old is new again, isn't it? I think really the video is a good entry point for us because it talks about where potentially we should be heading and maybe where we shouldn't. And the question is, will digital save us or will it harm us? And those are the questions I think a lot of folks bring up with our business right now. Certainly, I'll address the challenges today and the opportunities, not just from the newspaper side, but I think the entire media is undergoing kind of rethinking process. We certainly are. We have to. Some of our revenue streams are under siege. Others are stagnant. And conversely, we are presented with some opportunities for new revenue streams and new audiences that I think we really have to take off on. So that's kind of the difficulty and some of the choices that we have to make in our business right now. People ask me all the time, well, who's your competitors? Aren't you nervous about the Plain Dealer, Canton, or the weeklies, the radio, the TV stations? My answer is always the same. It's us. You know, historically, we have been stodgy. We have been unaware of our surroundings. We have been a bit drab at times. And I think what we're saying now, we're at a juncture where we've got to get out of our own way and start again. And with the changing landscape, we've got to react accordingly. And that's what we're trying to do. As I said, it's not just newspapers. When you buy a new automobile, it's equipped with satellite radio. Television stations zap commercials. Some of their national advertising is under siege, just like ours. So they have the challenges that we do as well. So it's the entire media world that is, again, rethinking directions and thought process of where do we need to be? What do we need to hold on to? What do we need to go down a different path? And so I think this reinvention is revigorating if we feel like it is. You know, certainly it can be debilitating if you let it, but we're not. Looking at our revenue base, it's shifting. You know, key retailers for us, the JCPenney's, Kmart, Sears, Best Buy, they're trying to figure out where they stand in the marketplace. Car dealers, they're relying on digital, and they certainly have more opportunities than ever before. Classified certainly isn't what it used to be for us. Craigslist and other free sites have taken market share. People are getting their news from comedy platforms like Jon Stewart and John Oliver. So it has certainly changed everything from demographics, and the advent of the internet certainly has rocked our world. So for us, we are a mass media in a niche world. We're different. You know, we certainly have niche products and online opportunities, but we're a mass media. And so how do we survive in that new environment? And those are the questions and the debate points that we have in our newspaper. You know, we're looking at facing alterations in content, in delivery, in sales, and that's new to us at this kind of speed. So many newspapers aren't equipped to do that. So it's important that we don't overreact to the environment, but you can't underreact either. So to give you a good example of that, we decided to cut the TV book earlier last year, thinking, wisely I believe, that, you know, is the TV book relevant anymore? Do people really care about that? We knew that we would get some blowback. We received 3,000 calls from people who said, what did you do to the TV book? Blew us away. We kind of expected it, but not those kind of numbers. And we lost some subscribers, but we did a good job of getting them back. That's a good point to say, you know, if you make a move, you'd better be ready for the consequences. We invested that TV book money to digital, which I think is a wise move, and that's where it's headed. So it wasn't just a pure cost savings, it was investment in the future. But any move you make, you certainly hear about it. I tell a story all the time about Coca-Cola. About 25, 30 years ago, they had a new CEO. And so they came to Atlanta, and he brought his folks together and said, all right, let's go around the room and tell me our market share. How are we doing here? So everybody went around the room, and it was all pretty close, 56%, 57, 55, they were kind of in the range. And he said, no, our market share is 13%. And they said, no, it's not. He said, look, you're thinking about the cola market. I'm thinking about the consumable beverage market. We've got to think much bigger. We've got to look at the total market, not just cola. And that's when Coca-Cola went out, invested in water, orange juice, and realized that there is a whole new world out there. And I think that's similar to what we have to do. You know, it's imperative with every move we make that we're more innovative. That we say, well, this is the way we've done it, and we've got to say, let's try this, and fail fast. So those are very important things that that I think we have to we talk about at our meetings, our employees, that change is good, and we've got to get to a destination, and if we don't, then we make another move, we make another change. You know, we can no longer define ourselves by a print product only. We looked at ourselves that way. We thought of ourselves that way. And just like Coca-Cola, years ago, they were a cola, they were a beverage that competed in the cola market. Well, we can't think like that. We're not just a print product. So we've got to venture out one parallel to the changing marketplace, and that's what we're trying to do. Our vision needs to be one of a blank canvas and look at the opportunities rather than seeing one narrow pathway as we have in the past. You know, we've defined ourselves by that physical product, and we're not. We're evolving. And it sounds easy, it sounds panacea to, you know, okay, just change and look for new products, but when you've been around 175 years and folks in the building and even the outside believe that, you know, that's who you are, it's difficult to make that change. So the one thing that we don't do very well in our business is talk about some of the good things that we do. Some of the things that we need to remind everybody why we're steady and why we think we'll be around quite a few years. So no need to cue the sad trombones or break out the shovel for burial. I think that's premature. Certainly, there's still gold in the hills for us. We just have to dig a little deeper and try a new path to find it. And I think that's a new experience for us. We're not used to that. So here are a few things that I like to talk about the industry that, again, we don't really say too much about. One thing that we do, and we do well, is we're a watchdog in the community. And that's important. That's imperative that we have that trust. Whether it's government, university, business, our ultimate responsibility is to uncover the truth. So that's part of our core principle. Every day we have to live that. Something else, you know, in the changing marketplace, people are consuming more news and content than ever before. Any demographic, age group, you pick it, folks are digesting stuff, right? And in a number of different ways. That's good for us. We're in that news and content business. So we're positioned well, and we do that very well. The question is, we can always change up content, but that's an important fact that the market is growing for news and content. Thanksgiving Day, it's a day that's important to retailers. Our newspaper was 4.5 pounds. That's a small weight. And what that says is some pretty smart marketing people still rely on us to turn their year to black, to make sure they have a profit, to bring in for that next 6 weeks a lot of customers in their store. And that's still the case. We had a nice paper Thanksgiving. We did last year. It was about 4.5 pounds. That says a lot about us. Something else I like to talk about. Our industry has been joined by some pretty bright people recently. Jeff Bezos from Amazon bought the Washington Post. And of course, Warren Buffett owns 63 newspapers, an entire company. So, you know, some folks who understand the future have invested in our business. That to me says a lot. And again, talking about the watchdog role, and again, I don't think we've talked about this, but we all know about the Jerry Sandusky story at Penn State. That was broken by a 24-year-old female reporter at the Patriot News. This wasn't the ESPN that seized upon it. The Chris Christie Washington Bridge story, pieced together by a reporter at the Bergen Record, another small newspaper. So, no one does local like us. If it's about Akron, we're in the know. We're connected to our readers, officials, and the community to help us with news tips. And certainly, they remind us often when we get it wrong or there's something we missed. We are trusted, we are counted on, and we're necessary for a free society. It's a message we have failed to deliver. But I think recently, this is something that a lot more people are talking about with the unfortunate unfortunate situation in Paris. And it's good that we're having this conversation. So all is not lost for the industry or the Beacon Journal. The digital side has opened new markets and new revenue streams. Email marketing, videos, selling a complete suite of digital products that we never had to offer before. This is a dynamic marketplace, a total playground that we can play in if we choose. And it helps us grow audience and target younger demographics. That's what we want. Our audience is bigger than ever. When you combine print and online and take out the unduplicated net reach, we're over 500,000. That's strong, that's a big footprint. And as we navigate these decisions on what to do and what not to do, it's a matter for us of placing resources. 90% of our revenue comes from print, but we know where the future is heading. So how do we balance that with tight resources? So we must prepare for that crossover at some point in our lifestyle, that everything reading digital takes over. We don't know, but at some point that's where it's heading, and we have to prepare for that. But we also have to remember our core principles and who we are. We are still a newspaper. And to make sure that we don't land either way too hard, or we don't spend our time on resourcing and people fully on the digital and forget our core newspaper. So those are the debates we have on 44 East Exchange every day. It's a balancing act of core product and the future of digital. If you think about it, our informational digital world, news and content finds you based on your needs. You pick and choose, and you get it. So how do we fit as a mass media in that world? How do we complement that so that you get what you get on any device, but at the same time, you need that total product that gives you a little bit of everything. And that's the thing that we have to figure out. So, what's our game plan? Where do we have to head off to and to improve? I've got a few things that I'll talk about. First of all, it's alternative fuel sources, new revenue streams. Talked about some of the issues that we're having with some of the current streams of major advertisers and classified. But we've got plenty of opportunities in the digital front. We can get into magazines. We can get into events, which we have already. Really, if you've got a sales force, graphics, and a distribution system, what can't you do? And I think that's how we're choosing to look at the world now, from a revenue standpoint. Very important. On the news side, more inviting, more enticing. It's not about content all the time, it's presentation that matters, particularly now when we're competing a lot out there. More dynamic, compelling is our theme. We need to shake up and surprise you one morning. And I'll show you some examples. Reading habits have shifted, and so we need to as well. Just, quickly, here's a year in beer, which, is a nice display for food, which is, just a great, it jumps out and grabs you. We were proud that we were able to hit our press times for when the Buckeyes won. We had just a fun front page that hit you in the morning. We made it. We hit the deadline. And now we're selling t-shirts, so we're into that business now, like we did for LeBron, so shameless all. And then we've got, we thought this was kind of cool, nice, a Buckeye schooling with Buckeyes and a great display. LeBron turned 30. This was kind of fun. Not everyone gets a kick out of this. We still get calls from saying, what are you doing with sports on the front? That's to be in sports. Which we understand. Everybody's a critic, and that's okay. As long as you read us. But 30 moments in 30 years. Very cool. And of course, I think it was this weekend where we did, which was kind of fun, year-long diary ends beer deer. Rick Armin, he took a kind of a selfie with every beer that he had. We could have done a special section on this. And the guys in the newsroom were really sticking it to him about that. It was kind of fun. But anyway, that's the point. We got to be a little more fun, a little more different, and a little more surprising. A few other things, of course, investigative work. That's what we do best. You know, what Bob Dyer did with Ernest Angiosperm was just brilliant, went worldwide. Now, conversely, that took him out of the marketplace for 3 months. He couldn't write anything, he couldn't do his wonderful columns. So that's that balancing act for us. So when you have a good investigative piece, you've got editors and you've got a good writer who's working on it, but they don't do anything else. But that's still something we should be working on all the time if something presents itself. That's what we do it well. Accelerate digital, social media. We've got to be there. We're doing some wonderful things there, but we've got to accelerate it. How different should we be than our print product? Should we be more fun? How do we grow audience? For example, Jason Lloyd has 29,000 Twitter followers. How do we leverage that? How do we monetize that? Those kind of things are discussions we have. On the news side again, you know, we used to rule by our gut. What made sense? We've got a lot of experience there. But I think today, with a changing world, we've got to use data. Scarborough. We've got to use analytics to say, maybe we should be heading off here, or maybe this is a better story, or let's play it this way. So we'll certainly do that more than we ever had before. The gut is important, you know, a nose for that, understanding what makes sense, but it can't be just in our newsroom. It's got to be some other opinions and some other thoughts on maybe some things that we've never tried before. And the last thing really is partnering with our neighbors. We deliver 11 newspapers out there, and we also have a sales agreement with one. Canton prints our newspaper. So we've got to look at those kind of efficiencies and those new revenue streams, which I think we've got a few things we're working on now, to continue and look at ourselves as a delivery service, because that's what we are, not just delivering our newspaper. So that's going to be a big and should be a good revenue stream. We do a very good job on the delivery side. So it's important that we continue to do that and leverage that strength. So let's also remember this as I kind of wrap up here. We touch lives. We create emotion. We challenge you. We make you mad. Make you smarter. Don't write that question, I'm not going to answer it. Come on, Dan, be good. We help you through the latest Browns loss, and we help you with some inside information on the Cavs when they win, whenever they start winning again, of course. Our goal is to tell you something you've never heard before, you never knew. And when we do that, we're really good. And when we stop doing that, we're in trouble. So that is something that we have to do every day, to look at our newspaper and say, do we have enough in there that there's an aha moment for our readers to say, I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. Didn't hear it anywhere else. That's hard to do, but it's something we strive for. So to come full circle with our tongue-in-cheek video, the vehicle we present in or on is not as important as how well we do it or how we connect with our audience. That's the important takeaway. And as Jim Trout will tell you, same thing applies for us. Know your customer, hold them tight, give them what they need. Don't migrate too far from your core principle, but do make adjustments so that you adapt to a fluid marketplace. The same thing that Acme does, and Jim believes in. We do as well. Interesting last story too. Sherwin-Williams, not too long ago, every year they bring people into a mountain resort, and all kinds of people, and they flash up different color schemes, and they're supposed to say, yes, I like this, I like that. So, after you see 45 eggshell whites, you're supposed to pick the one you like. There was a lady in the back who raised her hand and said, excuse me, I hate to break the mood here, but I'm kind of tired of looking at 15 yellow colors. And she says, can someone fix the can of the paint? You have to have a hammer and a screwdriver to open the can of paint. That's not on the side that tells you how to open it. What's with that? And that's when the twist and pour started. That this lady, a customer, said, "Forget the colors, guys. Help me open the paint can." And that idea was, they talked about that a little bit, but the paint can was in effect for 100 years. And no one decided that there's a better way, you know? And so this lady did. And we can learn from that. If we listen, we adjust our product lines, we fit new markets, so we don't tip the scales and disorient our core readers, we'll be fine. If we innovate, move faster, collect good, smart talent, and capture emerging demos, and still lead the way on disseminating information, however that is, we're going to be fine. So, I believe, just like Warren Buffett and Jeff Bezos, that I think we have a solid future if we do the right things, and hopefully we have another 175 years. So, thank you.
Our speaker has graciously agreed to respond to written questions from the audience. So you'll find note cards on your table. Please write down your question and raise your hand, and they'll be collected for our program chair, David Hunter.
I want to thank our speaker for his informing, engaging, and essential remarks here, and we'll open up the paint can of questions with this one. You've been on the job now as publisher for 14 months, and so you've seen the paper during all months, all seasons. And based on that 14 months of experience, what do you observe to be one of the stronger aspects of the Akron Beacon Journal, and what do you find to be maybe an aspect of the paper which needs a little more work?
I think we've got a nice bond with our community. It's a wonderful community. You guys know that. And I think that we have that tie that's really close. And that's where folks will call us out and get 3,000 calls for, dropping a TV book, or people will call. I get voicemails all the time from folks. And so I think that's the thing that I'm really excited about, that this is your newspaper, and it's that bond that ties us together. The disappointment, I guess, is that the question, the thing that we've got to work on? I think it's, again, just livening up the product a little bit. You know, not being so stodgy. I think we're starting to see some different displays. We changed our weekend section, and we're starting to do some fun things, and I think we have to do that. It's great to cover the news, but we also have to lighten up and cover some other things to really attract a new audience.
Here's a critical and rather frank question from our audience. No one knows Akron like the Beacon Journal, and a substantial share of articles are syndicated wire stories. Since it's local Akron coverage that differentiates you, do you anticipate any shifts in the balance of local and syndicated news?
Great question, and it's resourcing. There's no question about it. We don't have the reporters we used to, or the editors. So we've got to make sure it's balanced. We will survive because we are local, and that's our lane. And we've got to be careful that we don't shift anywhere else. However, it's still our job to cover regional, national, international news. When we don't have that, we get a lot of critics saying, wait a minute, I count on you. I don't listen to the radio or TV. You guys are my news for international, national news. But I don't see that shift going further to national or international. We are a local newspaper. We're in 5 counties. It's difficult to get out there, but that's exactly who we need to be, and hopefully we'll continue to be local.
We have several questions from members of our audience about the paywall. Are you paying a price for putting up a paywall? Both Cleveland.com and Crane seem to be targeting more coverage in Summit County. Your reaction?
I don't know of any business that gives their product away for free online and charges at their store. And that's what we were doing. We said, look, If you want our paper, take it on print and pay for it. But you can also get it online for free. That is not a business model at all for anybody. Ask an auto dealer to try that. Free cars online. But if you stop in, it's going to cost you $30,000. It hasn't cost us. It cost us some audience, but what we're finding is it's now a quality audience. You know, we picked up some newspaper subscribers from it. So when folks call in and they want to get us online for $1 more, they'll get Saturday and Sunday. So we've picked up a new audience. So we're working on getting some of that audience back, but a lot of those folks are out of the market. They're way out there, and they just looked at us, and they weren't the kind of quality that's really important to our advertisers.
Here's a question about crime coverage. Violent crime, shootings, killings, why have blazing headlines? This sometimes glorifies the crime, and some people even think a crime could make them famous. Please report it, but shouldn't it be a secondary story to stories that benefit our society as a whole?
Another fair question. You know, how sensational do we need to be? Are we overplaying that? I think the news gets painted with that brush all the time. You watch the news at 6:30, or we know our friends in the TV business in Cleveland. That's tainted towards that a little bit. So I think we're all guilty of that. And we do need to make sure that we balance it out a little bit. And many times I ask folks, what percent do you think is negative news versus positive news? And they all say, oh, it's 70% negative. Well, when you do the count, it's about 70% positive. Not always the most read story, sadly enough. We track that online. But if you got a good crime story, people are reading it. So that's something that we've got to consider, and it may not be the right answer, the best answer, but you know, we've got to go with what people read.
Your answer is a great segue to this next question. And your remarks touched upon age demographics. And one member of our audience asked this: how does age demographics play into which stories are run, if at all?
I think we're going to have to do that more and more. We know that our demographics skew over. Young folks they don't read print a lot. I've got a son, 32, and daughter, 27. They're not big into print. So yes, we have to make that decision. I think that analytics and our Scarborough data will help guide us to think about that more often. I think it has played to some part in our thinking, but I think we have to really get a lot more serious about what we display based on the audience that we're trying to reach.
In your remarks, you talked about the watchdog role that the newspaper plays. Do you feel you use that for both positive and negative circumstances? Is there a balance?
There is, but quite honestly, you know, we're not here to be the cheerleader every day of the community. Our job is to cover the news, and sometimes it's difficult, and sometimes it's not pretty. And we can't distinguish that. If it's a story and we need to dig in, we'll dig in. We've got a good series, we think, coming up that's balanced and talking about our community and where it should go. But, you know, no one could say that the good Ebola stories that we did, or the Ernest Ainsley stories, and we took on Kent State a little bit. That's what we do. Now, at the same time, we've got to make sure we balance that out with some very positive stories, and make sure that we're not shifted towards just that crime and mayhem. And that's something we have to catch ourselves all the time and say, okay, where do we go now with this?
How would you describe the paper's responsibility to cover international news?
Really the same kind of question. I think, you know, that's a tough one, because if you're a news junkie and you really enjoy that stuff, you're going to get it in a number of ways. You're going to get it online. You're going to, maybe you subscribe to the New York Times or Wall Street. So you're in the know. What our job is, for folks that don't get that, is to make sure we kind of touch and go those things. You know, to go with, unless it's a real tragedy, to go on pages and pages of national, international news is, you know, that's not what people are buying us for. So we have to balance it. We've got to cover it, but we can't over-cover it.
We have many more questions than we can ask, and I'll make these available to you after the program here, but we have time for 2 more. Here's an interesting question. Since the Beacon has jumped on the bandwagon to push cities to buy body cameras for police officers, when will the Beacon be placing body cameras on reporters so we know for sure what was actually said during interviews?
Well, Don, I don't know. We've never considered that. That's a great question, Don. We'll get back to you on that.
We hope you're here for a long time, but we'll close with this question. How would you like the Akron Beacon Journal in the Beacon book to look 5 years from now?
I hope it's the same thing, only larger. More advertisers and growing. That's what I would hope.
Mr. Cohen, thank you for being here with us today. On behalf of the Akron Roundtable, it is my pleasure to present with you a contemplative sun as a memento of your visit with us this afternoon. This celebratory work of art was designed exclusively for the Akron Roundtable by local Akron artist and craftsman Don Drum. We invite the audience to join us at Quaker Station in downtown Akron on Tuesday, January 27th for a Roundtable Extra, where we will present Stephen Johnson, who will speak on the topic, How We Got to Now, Lessons from History's Unsung Innovators. Thank you all for being here. I would like to request that as you leave today and pull out your mobile phones, please post your attendance on your social media sites of Facebook and Twitter to share your experience with us here today. Thank you for being with us, and we look forward to seeing you at the Roundtable Extra.